how you doing? This is Gina Versa, and I'm joined today by Nick Valero.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And this is Serving Up Comics with Nick and Gene.
Yeah, we have been thinking about this this show for a really long time. And it's something that is kind of a passion project between me and Gene. We're huge comic book fans, comic book nerds, if you would. And yeah, I think that's something that we don't really get to talk a lot about on the podcast, on the Waffle Press. You know, no matter how much, comic book news or anything like that, we can never really fit it in to an entire episode. So what we thought is, why don't we make another show just about comics, just for you guys.
Mm-hmm. And you're watching the first episode. So.
Yeah, this is the pilot. If you guys like it, hit the like button, everything like that. It'll probably be at the bottom. Yeah, just smash that like button. Make sure to ring the bell and everything else. What was it? Leave some comments about some stuff that you want us to talk about. Yeah. Gene?
Yeah, Nick, so just first thing I wanted to ask you, how did you get into comics?
I actually got into comics in a really strange way. My brother was into comics at the first time, and we went on a camping trip.
Okay.
And my brother could not stop snoring. And I was probably like 12, 13 years old, and he had Watchmen in the car. And could not sleep, could not, do anything like that. So I thought, might as well, it's the only book that was there. And picked it up, started reading it, finished it that same day. Just breezed right through Watchmen. Thought it was an incredible novel and stuff like that. It kind of got me on the path of, this is what I'm gonna, I really enjoyed this. And I started picking up different comic books, different graphic novels, stuff like that. And I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah, no, that's, Watchmen is a good one to start. It's like a bit of a, this is where the medium should be.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, it does make when you read other stuff kind of disappointing, because sometimes it's very heavy-handed, or like the message isn't as clear or as strong or anything like that, and you're kind of like, that was good, but it could have been better. And stuff like that. Whenever I try to get people into comic books, I always give them Watchmen and go, if you like Watchmen, you're gonna love comic books. Stuff like that, because Watchmen seems to have everything that a comic book should be. It has intrigue, it has, personal drama, it has growth in characters, it has wacky just hijinks of just squids and stuff.
I don't know if that's wacky.
But it's so comic booky, it fits.
Yeah, okay.
It's so comic booky.
I love the squid.
Yeah.
I think in the Zack Snyder movie, they would have benefited from a squid.
From a giant squid? You know what? But I do like Zack Snyder. This is off topic, but Zack Snyder's take of it does make a little more sense than a giant squid. That Dr. Manhattan does become, the villain and stuff like that. It just makes a little more sense than a squid invading the planet, and then everybody's like, oh, now we have to be a... No, I think it makes more sense if this godly figure is out there and could end the entire planet if he just felt like it. And maybe we should act a little bit better, and God's real. Mm-hmm. Let's try and do good, stuff like that.
Definitely. But I think my first comic book was Spider-Man Chapter 1 by John Byrne. And I got it in a medicine store back when they used to have that.
A medicine store?
Yeah,
you had it in a CVS?
Like a CVS, like a pharmacy. Yeah, they were on the racks. They were probably in the 90s or so.
All right.
It's a very terrible comic, but it introduced me to it, and I was hooked. So I just kept buying it. Got into Spider-Man. Just always collected. I was always a fan of Brian Michael Bendis. Just all the Marvel stuff growing up, and then got into Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns. My favorite graphic novels, I'm gonna go with Dark Knight Returns over Watchmen.
Dark Knight Returns is really, really good. I really like Dark Knight Returns. My favorite is Watchmen. It's probably V for Vendetta, just because how weird and the political nuance of V for Vendetta and stuff like that. The character of V is just such an interesting character, just to be a faceless character, which I like hero, and stuff like that, which is always kind of interesting and stuff. But yeah, or even Batman Year One. Batman Asylum is also really good. I made a mistake when I was a kid, and I ended up buying Batman Asylum because I thought the art looked really cool.
Yeah, I love that artwork.
The artwork is beautiful in that, and the only problem is that it will give you nightmares if you are a small child.
I would imagine.
I would imagine. It is not a comic book that is made for kids. or anything like that. Also, like The Long Halloween, stuff like that. Like just a lot of really like, I did make the mistake of jumping straight into graphic novels instead of going into comics. First, I went to graphic novels, then went to comics and stuff like that. So, getting that whole thing of I'm going to finish an entire story and then everything and, move on to a different story, that always interested me. But also going, issue to issue is really interesting, especially with like the anticipation of it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Question for you: what are you reading now? Because I'm curious.
Right now, what I'm reading, I'm actually catching up.
What's on your pull list?
My pull list right now would probably be. I'm still keeping up with the Walking Dead comics and everything like that. I thought I've been thinking those are really good and stuff. I actually been picking up the new James Bond comics.
Okay.
Started reading them because I picked them up as a gift. And sure enough, they were really good. They deal with a lot of. They have like all the notes of a good James Bond story. It's way better than Spectre, and everything else. What was it? Also, I started getting more into what is it? Some of the. I started going into what is it called? Batman's. Batman. God, why can I not think of the name? I'm brain farting. I'm brain farting right now. Come back to me now, and I'll have the title for you.
Yeah,
I can't remember the title right now, but I did go back. I reread All-Star Superman.
Because you have the DC app.
I do have the DC app. Yeah, it's a great way if you want to just like kind of read some like really cool stuff. Like I started reading some Doom Patrol after watching the show, because as soon as you watch the show, the DC app goes, you'd probably like these and stuff like that. Like these are the stories that we kind of pulled from to make the show and stuff like that. So I started reading some of the Doom Patrol like older comics, which are really good. Like
Grant Morrison's still great.
Yeah, like Doom Patrol is amazing. Like I love the idea of them, and like what the hell? Like why didn't they get more screen time? Like the Doom Patrol are really cool. It's basically the X-Men.
It was the X-Men before the X-Men.
Yeah, it's the X-Men before the X-Men. I mean, you have a main hero who's in a wheelchair, and then you have like everybody who has like deformities and stuff like that they're trying to live with, and it's really interesting. It is like a great storyline. If you haven't read any of the Doom Patrol, go read it.
It's a good series too. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, Doom Patrol has always been a really good series. It doesn't get as much play. Like it always gets like maybe like 20 issues, and then they cancel it because nobody's reading it and stuff like that, which is always really disappointing, because it seems like the Doom Patrol has really good stories, but they never get a chance to finish them.
Right. They need to develop more of an audience, which hopefully with the show we could see.
Yeah. What was it? I also started reading the New 52 Static.
Okay.
The Mark Bernardin run, which was actually really good. He had you can kind of see in like the first like 3 issues that he did, he had like a really interesting arc that he was going to begin. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they were just like, yeah, you're canceled, dude. Yeah,
it's unfortunate. When I interviewed him at Long Beach, he had a lot of fun. It seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, it's Static, man. How do you not have fun with Static and everything else? But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I've been like. Going back and forth,
that's
everything
your
like that. Yeah, it's more or less my pull list.
Like digital one. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? I also started reading the John Wick series.
Okay.
Just because they came out with a John Wick comic book, and it's supposed to be a prequel to everything. It's kind of like how John Wick became like how he became Baba Yaga and stuff like that. Yeah. It's really interesting.
How he developed a love for dogs.
Yeah, how he developed a love for dogs. But it's actually really funny too, because it seems like any situation, just everyone wants to kill him. Like, even in the comic book, I think like the first like 4 or 5 issues is like him pissing off like a town, and like all of the like heavy hitters in this town all want to go kill John Wick and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a very diverse list of comics you're reading.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I don't really stick to one brand or
Definitely.
somebody or anything like that. I mean, I love DC comics. I love their heroes and stuff like that. But I do think that. All comics are good, it not DC Image or anything like that. A comic book is good. That's it,
Right.
You should read it.
Of course, yeah. I'm reading. I have like 4 books I'm reading right now. Tom King's Batman, which I'm glad is not being canceled early. It's instead being continued.
How do you like it? How do you like it?
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite book to read right now on stands. It adds a lot of depth to Batman. the emotions of Batman, because it's about him just dealing with being him.
Yeah.
Like, he can't find happiness. Like, once he finds it, something always fucks it up. And this like psychological like war with him and Bane is just so interesting. It's like something out of an HBO show. I find it like just fascinating, and the fact that they added the Flashpoint Batman, which is Thomas Wayne.
Yeah,
is just really fucking really interesting.
Yeah, because Thomas Wayne came back for Doomsday Clock, didn't they?
He came in a prequel. It was the Button.
Yeah, the Button, stuff like that.
And he's still out there.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I mean, I do like the idea of bringing in like these characters, like these outworld characters, and like bringing them into the main narrative, and kind of going like, no, they actually like they're here. They exist in this giant multiverse of like characters and stuff like that. Like,
I would really recommend Tom King's Batman to anyone. It's amazing, and I'm going to continue reading with Batman and Catwoman, and Heroes in Crisis just finished.
Yeah.
I'm a big Tom King fan. Wasn't so hot on Heroes in Crisis. It just kind of...
Is it because it didn't end the way you liked it, or is it...
I just felt that it didn't go on its premise of this is what happens when heroes go to therapy. I felt it should have focused a bit more on that instead of this mystery thriller involving Wally West and all of that. I mean, I guess that's the hook, but it just felt like it lost track of its perspective.
Did you kind of want it like Damage Control in a way where it's dealing with... Because Damage Control is all about like people dealing with like the tragedy of like living with superheroes.
Yeah.
Like how exactly do we live with like superheroes just came in one day and destroyed my office building? What do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just like that. But then there was just all these plot lines that just didn't feel like it went anywhere with the Sanctuary, which is the medical facility that the heroes go to get psychologically evaluated. There were a lot of plot lines where, okay, the Sanctuary got released, but then it doesn't really... The secrecy of the Sanctuary was revealed to the world. And
really quick, if you're reading, Heroes in Crisis, spoilers, because I figure...
Yeah.
You might not know all that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you just picked up the first issue.
But just kind of... A lot of plot lines didn't go anywhere, and I'm a big Tom King fan, and I was just a little disappointed, so...
Yeah, but I mean, everybody has a hit and miss.
Yeah. I still think he's a great writer. I want to see him on Ava's New Gods.
Yeah.
His Mr. Miracle series is amazing, so... Yeah, he's still an amazing writer in my book, just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, who knows, maybe, somebody else liked the comic and everything like that. And that's the reason why I highly, highly advocate... Doesn't matter if you don't give a comic book at least 2 to 3 issues.
Yeah, exactly.
If the first issue doesn't necessarily grab you, all right, cool.
That's a good rule of thumb, man.
Yeah, because a lot of times the first issue is it's a lot of setup. It's a lot of like, where are the characters, who's involved in this story, what is the big mystery, or what's the issue that the heroes are dealing with, or anything like that. By the time you get to either like the 3rd or the 4th issue or anything like that, that's more or less where like the main story begins. And it's kind of like, all right, we've gotten all the introductions out. Now we can actually start our story.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I mean, a comic book is what, 14, 15 pages? It's
probably 20 or so with ads, or if there is ads now.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just saying in general, it's really hard to fit everything, like your entire introduction into 20 pages still. And so I would definitely recommend giving a comic book 3, which are 3 issues, 4 if you're like really curious, but also don't be ashamed if you like, what, this isn't for me and everything like that. I know comic books are expensive.
Exactly. They're $3.99 now. Sometimes $5.99.
They're $3.99.
They're expensive.
That's why I went to the DC app, man. I was buying a lot of DC comics. The DC app came with all the comics. I was like, you know what? This is a good buy.
Yeah.
It's $7.99 a month. I'm spending like $20 to $30 every month. So
yeah, but Nick, I like. I saw a movie recently, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Which we got a advanced copy of the graphic novel prequel comic,
yes.
Godzilla Aftershock. And we just wanted to thank Legendary for sending that to us.
They didn't just hand it over. They expected you to review it. That's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wojak, thank you very much, guys. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I did see the artwork. I didn't get a chance to pick it up from you or anything like that. I was looking into it, and the artwork looks amazing and stuff like that. What exactly did you get from this first issue?
Yes. So the graphic novel I really enjoyed, where it really expanded upon the backstory of the Mewtwo's, who I thought were pretty cool kaiju in the first Godzilla, in the 2014 Godzilla.
Yeah.
And you see a bit more mythology there. You get a bit more of Godzilla and the Mewtwo's relationship because they're natural enemies. And you see Godzilla's ancestor, who also hunted Mewtwo's. And, it's really cool because I love how in the MonsterVerse, how fleshed out just the hierarchy and the biology of all the monsters are, where this monster is the king of monsters, this one is the predator of him, this is how they're kind of
this is how they're like what was it,
ecosystem
their ecosystem, and like who's the predator, who's the prey. That is kind of interesting, and everything else. I mean, like I said, the artwork's beautiful. The story sounds amazing, especially giving more context to Godzilla.
Right, and it also gives us a bit more context into a lot of the characters from King of the Monsters, which I really appreciated. Was it Maddie, Millie Bobby Brown's characters in there a bit? Was it her Vera Farmiga's character? Gets some agency to do, and it's just really it's well done that we see a bit more of the humans in this monster, in the MonsterVerse, which in monster movies, there's some interesting humans.
There are some interesting humans. I know that some people were complaining that Godzilla King of the Monsters, that in the Godzilla movie that there wasn't enough humans. It really did focus a lot on the monster fighting and stuff like that, and like their big rivalry and stuff like that, in which I know some people were saying, so it's a positive, right?
Yeah. But yeah, the characters were interesting, and
that's good.
It's a really great graphic novel. The illustration is really well done, and it's in bookstores now. You can buy it digitally, and
would you say it's more of like an anime-esque like comic book? Because when I was looking at it, it looked very like a fusion of the two artworks.
Yeah, there's a little. I would say there's probably some anime influence for sure.
Yeah, because it seemed like the shading and everything like that, whereas the structure of the actual characters themselves were a lot more comic booky. It was a lot more what was it like?
A little stylized.
Yeah, it was a lot more northern, like comic book style, but and then the actual coloration and everything else, that was much more of the West. I mean, of the East and everything else, and I thought that was kind of like a nice hybrid of the two.
That was cool. Yeah, I would agree. And all the prequels Legendary comes out with, like for Pacific Rim, Godzilla.
Yeah,
it's really cool. We get to inhabit that world.
So if you're liking monsters, go check it out.
Yeah.
Go check out go check them out. So you would definitely recommend the first issue?
Yes, I would.
Definitely recommend it. All right, there you go. Definitely would recommend it. I wholeheartedly back that up.
So the last topic of the show is a segment we like to call the soapbox.
Yes.
So for our last segment, we're going to talk about the X-Men movies, which has its last film, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Dark Phoneix.
As far as the
it's finally out after the delay.
As far as the Fox, as far as the Fox Disney merger and everything like that, Disney hasn't necessarily said that they were going to recast, but everybody knows they're going to reboot.
You have Kevin Feige saying we're not going to do any. We're going to use these characters, but we're going to wait a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be. I think it's really interesting because you can already kind of see, especially from Homecoming and stuff like that, how they're already kind of planting the seeds of oh yeah, this is what happened. We're ripping up the fabric of reality because of what the Avengers did in Endgame and stuff like that, and because of this, because there was 3 gamma snaps that traveled over the entire world. People's DNA might have gotten mixed.
Messed some things up.
Yeah, you might have created, a little thing called mutants.
Exactly. But but for I guess it was like the X universe. Who knows if they, it lasted. Can you believe like almost 20 years?
That's actually really cool.
That's cool. I mean, like there's some legacy to it.
There's I mean, following the timeline is,
People get Marvel shit, but
it kind of looks like a murder board if you try to follow. Right. You have like string going from one end to the other. Mm-hmm. Like, well, if this happened here, then that happened there, then this. But yeah, I mean, definitely the entire like Sony verse of like X-Men movies.
Fox.
I mean Fox. Yeah, Fox. Why did I say Sony? So many people own Marvel characters, man. It's eventually it gets confusing.
Not anymore because Fox is owned by Disney.
Yeah, but what was it? But I definitely do think Fox's rendition of the X-Men. I mean, at the time, was amazing. Mm-hmm. It definitely did help with the without X-Men. Mm-hmm. I don't think you would have the Nolan verse. You wouldn't have the Marvel movies that we have today. It very much did reinvigorate the the notion of comic book movies and stuff like that. I don't think that you would have the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Yeah. I would agree because Kevin Feige got his start working for Lauren Shuner Donner.
Yeah.
And got Kevin Feige a start. It did.
Actually, it also was where Mark Berlanti. From the Arrowverse as well.
Arrowverse, yeah.
Yeah.
They laid a lot of groundwork, and it's just it's interesting where it's just I don't know if you read the Matthew Vaughn quote about working with Fox, where he was just saying all these studio executives they're going like 100 miles per hour on the freeway, and there's no rearview mirrors. And they keep hitting stuff, and they wonder why they keep hitting stuff. And it's just
no one's slowing down.
No one's slowing down, and the way that they handled some of the characters, they just rebooted it, or they went back in time, or they added like a new timeline to just they kept trying to course correct, and it's crazy that Dark Phoneix is just a remake of The Last Stand.
Well, the thing that didn't make sense for me for Dark Phoneix was that they made their last movie, Apocalypse, and at the end of Apocalypse, it shows her having the Dark Phoneix.
Right, she has the Phoenix Force.
She has the Phoenix Force.
It's it's this entity that lives within her.
Yeah, and then,
how The Last Stand was.
Then in Dark Phoneix,
she
re-gets it? It becomes corrupted in a way?
She gets a cosmic force.
Yeah, and they don't really explain if whether or not it was the Phoenix Force or if it's just like a dark entity that's there or anything like.
Spoilers.
The movie's garbage.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, it got to a point where it's just like, what is this movie? It was just weird where...
It doesn't have a thesis.
Yeah, there's nothing it says. There's all these aliens, which were never in the X-Men universe.
Yeah,
so far, it's in the comics, but it's just, then they're not Skrulls, but they're shapeshifters.
I feel like they put something in, like the Dark Phoneix, and Dark Phoneix is such a powerful and such an awesome comic book.
It's a great storyline.
It's a great storyline, that you have all of these, you have one of the, the best heroes, Jean Grey, and she goes bad, and people die, and you have all these different cosmic entities that are involved and everything like that, and it's
Imperial Guard.
Yeah, you have all these
really interesting.
Yeah, you have all these really interesting plot lines, but the only problem is that they did this over maybe 30, 40 comics over a span of 2 to 3 years and stuff like that to just try and condense an entire storyline like that into 2 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
Right. And it's just
because the Dark Phoneix could be its own trilogy.
It could be. And it's frustrating watching this movie because you see all this storyline. These storylines were undercut, and the fact that they reshot the ending 2 or 3 times. I think they shot it twice, but it's crazy where it's geez. It was supposed to be in space, the original ending, and now it's on a train.
Yeah,
it's
for some reason, when I heard that, I felt like they saw the ending and they were like, "Damn, all right, well, we need to reshoot this thing. So what are we going to do? Well, why don't we do another thing? Oh, well, that's going to cost a lot. So
just do it on a train.
Why don't we just do it on a train? You know,
there we go. Trains are great.
Yeah, you know, and all we need to show is just like a train moving. That's about
right.
And then like we could put Sophie Turner on wire. And then
and it's just everything feels like so cheap in the movie and so unimaginative.
It seems like done.
Yeah, you know? The way they use their powers is like no one uses it in an exciting way. They just like Storm goes like this. She doesn't like, you know, like do anything crazy. Magneto he's always like pulling stuff.
It's always like,
and like no one uses their powers like in an interesting way anymore in these movies.
I mean, the only person I think has ever like used the powers really creatively, and they've done it so many times where it's like, oh, this is really cool, is Quicksilver.
That's the only time.
With Quicksilver, you have these, you know, you have this, you know, this mutant that can use his speed, and he can slow down time, and he does funny stuff with it and everything like that. But the thing is that you can have, you know, Nightcrawler do really cool stuff. You know, what about Cyclops? Like Cyclops just.
Like, do you remember when Nightcrawler first debuted?
That was cool.
Yeah.
What a way to introduce Nightcrawler is him taking out the White House.
Yeah.
Just him battling through the White House and then stabbing into the desk of the commander-in-chief of the United States. And then you're like, what was that? Uh-huh. And it's like, oh, he could use his fighting skill. He can use this like fighting skills for that and stuff like that. That's really interesting. I mean,
Exactly. And it, you know, I just felt like it had like a random analogy. It reminds me of like an elective in college you would take on a Friday in the morning, and like people are there and they don't want to be there, and some of them are in their pajamas, and everyone's just here, and like the actors are like, okay, it's in our contract.
Yeah, I feel like the notion.
Everyone's excited.
Yeah, I feel like the notion that
no one's in their costumes. It's like they didn't try.
Well, not only that, but also you have these. You have like a lot of these Easter eggs, and they never follow through.
Yeah, there's like Genosha, but it's never called Genosha.
Yeah, but also you have like the end of Apocalypse. You know, you see everybody in their comic accurate like suits, and you're kind of like, that's awesome. Next movie, comic accurate.
You wanted to see that, yeah,
and everything like that. Like that's gonna be really cool. I'm super happy about this. And then all of a sudden, the next movie, I mean, it's cool because they look like the Ultimate Comics and everything like that, with like the black spandex with a big yellow X on the front, and that's really cool. And you know that it's going more towards it, but don't have that Easter egg then.
Yeah, exactly. What was the point? Yeah,
that means you made the suits. You have the suits in storage.
Yeah, they're somewhere.
They're somewhere at Fox. Like they're in a backlot somewhere, and you have these suits. Fucking use them. You made them for a 20-second spot.
Right. Yeah, they're in there for 20 seconds, and they never factor in again. That's just the X-Men. Like the end of the Wolverine is like you see in the deleted scene, the alternate. And then you see the Wolverine costume.
Yeah.
And someone made that Wolverine costume.
It's been sitting there.
It's there.
I'm pretty sure Hugh Jackman had to put it on and stuff like that to try out the helmet and stuff. Never used it.
Used it. And this, you know, this just goes back to just the way these movies were handled. It's just there wasn't much thought put into like what they wanted these movies to be. They kept constantly changing.
Well, to be totally honest, I do blame Joel Schumacher for a lot of it.
Okay.
I mean, Joel Schumacher takes a lot of heat and everything like that, and I blame him for this as well.
Okay.
Because of his work on Batman and Robin, I feel like there was such a stigma and stuff like that.
Right.
And you know, because he was like, this is for kids. You know, this is in let's make it like real colory, and let's let's throw a crap load of color on the screen, and you know, and everybody's gonna love it. Don't worry about it.
The first X-Men was a response to that, where it's like, oh, was it like leather spandex?
Yeah, like what did you expect? Like bright yellow?
And that's the weird stigmata that just stayed with that franchise. It's like, let's never have them in costumes.
Yeah.
And it lasted for like 20 years. And
but it's also really weird too, of like you kind of fighting against having people in costume, but only fighting against certain people being in costume. Because like Magneto, he's always in costume.
He's always in costume. Yeah.
He's always been in like his helmet with his burgundy, or not burgundy, like scarlet, like suit that he's always in and everything like that. He in no shape or form ever got out of that and everything else. And that's, I mean, and Magneto always looked really cool. He always was like a dominant force inside of those movies. But I mean, other characters, not so much.
Right.
You don't have that same thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not the main thing that I'm kind of upset about with this series. I am upset about the idea of you have I think that once the Singer universe kind of ended and you went into the Vaughn, the Vaughn universe, I don't really think they should. Days of Future Past is a great idea, especially if you're like, oh hey, we made an earlier one, we have a back one. You know, why don't we just put them together and then we'll just say it's one universe?
Yeah. And
stuff like that. I do feel like it makes things weird.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, because they were supposed to do like 2 movies before Days of Future Past.
Because technically, what Days of Future Past is basically saying is that 3 did happen, the Phoenix Force, everything like that. So 3 does happen, but so does Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And then also, but Apocalypse never apparently happened in.
This the timeline's convoluted, and then the fact that it skips every 10 years and they still look fairly young. Like
they don't age.
They don't age. Like Xavier is supposed to be in his 50s, and like McAvoy still looks pretty like he looks pretty young. Like they could try, they could make him bald. They could maybe put some.
Because I think they said that
all this, like they stick to all these weird rules, and it's just this was a lot of these movies were made by committee, and sometimes studio executives don't.
And that's a great point. That's a great point. The X-Men series is very much movies of committee. It's never they were never movies that were trying to say anything.
Yeah.
They were never anything that was like, oh yeah, we have a.
Yeah,
the only problem with Days of Future Past, I mean, what was it? Apocalypse, and also with the Dark Phoneix, is that I kind of don't give a shit.
Yeah, you just stop caring.
Like, you kind of just don't care about these characters. You're kind of like, all right, this is a movie. Like, now the characters are just doing stuff.
Things are just happening. There's no,
Yeah, everybody's reacting to situations that are happening and everything like that. I don't understand why a main character, like Mystique would, why they would show that inside of like a trailer.
Yes.
Like the marketing for it was crazy.
And it's what a way for the series to go, but it's over now.
Yeah, it's over now.
Kevin Feige takes these characters.
Kevin Feige can take the characters all they want and repackage them up and
he did some consulting on the series. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I do like the idea of somebody doing these characters right.
Yeah.
And I think that would be so interesting.
It's going to be interesting. We'll see.
Hopefully it's going to be very. You know what? I don't think it would take 10 years.
Maybe.
Do you really think it would take 10 years?
I think it's going to be maybe like 4 or 7, something like that. I think under 10 years.
I can see 5.
Yeah,
I can see 5 years of, because they didn't have them yet, and now that they're like planning out their next phase of kind of going like, all right, we're gonna bookmark like an X-Men movie for 2 to 3, like
exactly.
3 years, and then we're gonna go into development and stuff like that. Like, we're gonna start developing now.
But we'll see what King Feige has for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What was it? Closing thoughts.
I guess if you want to see the end of these characters, you can see it if you want. Maybe some people might like it. I mean, it's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
this is my soapbox.
Once again, this is the soapbox. You may agree, you may disagree. That's completely what this is for. Go see the movie yourself. I don't disagree with anybody that just wants to watch the movie and make their own informed opinion. Definitely go do that. Give the movie some money. It needs it. Sure. It'll definitely need it. I don't want this to be a reflection of Sophia Turner. I think she's a great actress.
She's great in it?
Yeah.
She's good in it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she cries most of the movie, but I mean, that's still, it's hard to do.
Yeah. Well, but, yeah, I guess that's my...
Yeah, I mean, that's more or less my closing thoughts on the project as well. Once again, this has been serving up some comics. If you have any topics that you guys would like us to talk about or even read, or if you have any comic book suggestions of stuff that we should be reading, something that doesn't get enough people talking about it or anything like that, we're more than willing to go look it up, and we're very down to read new comic books. So send it to us. Once again, hit the like, the subscribe, and ring that bell.
Mm-hmm. Nick, where can people find you?
People can find me at Twitter at the Nick Valero, and you can also find me on Facebook, Nick Valero.
Mm-hmm. You can find me Twitter and Instagram, G9892. You can follow the Waffle Press on Twitter at the Waffle Press. We're on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So we've been professionally professional. We have been professionally unprofessional. He messed it up. Have a good night.